But of course, we have Sola Saloako, an advocate of consumers in Nigeria. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. Good
Yes,
morning.
CAFON specifically.
Yes.
Good Consumer
morning.
Advocacy
Foundation
of Nigeria, CAFON.
Yes.
So there we are again.
My favorite topic.
Yes, your favorite topic. I mean, and am I glad that you're the one, you know, who will be looking at this for us. The CBN, you know, says it has this consumer protection department, you know, to protect the interest of customers and all of that. That's been going on for how long now?
Since 2012?
Since 2012. And so far, how would you say, what impact do you think this particular department really has had?
I would say that, like most things that are Nigerian, it's not so much as a strategic policy as it is as a tokenist tendency, because there was a lot of uproar about consumers having issues. They quickly set up a department, but how strategic is that department to the total policy structure of CBN? That still remains to be seen. Because when you look at it, consumer protection is not only after the fact, it's not only in seeking redress, it is also in preventing those actions in the first place. And to prevent those actions in the first place, it is not the CPD of CBN that would get that done. It is the CPD being in a total holistic policy of CBN, because it is in banking supervision, it is in all the other operational departments where the preventions start. It is after the infraction has been committed that the CPD gets to, okay, we investigate and then we adjudge and then ensure that consumers get redress.
Yeah, the CBN has
how many of it gets
that,
to them?
Yeah, of course, before the department was actually created, they had to revise the guidelines. There's a guideline for consumer protection. I heard about it yesterday, so that means it's been on since 2012, 2013. So how many Nigerians knows about this?
Guideline for consumer protection?
Yes.
I know that CBN is developing a guideline. I was invited, like many other advocates, to come and help review it. I am not aware that it has been passed or it is now a functional.
When were you invited?
That was sometime last year. Was it last year? Yes, sometime last year.
And between last year and now, there's been a lacuna, really. So Nigerians may not even know their rights, may not even know when a bank has changed them, as the case may be.
Oh, definitely. But they have an idea. Because, I mean, this is your money. You are the one who gets the alert to say this has been deducted and all. But there are other systemic ways in which consumers are being shortchanged. One of the key issues with the banking industry in Nigeria is that you have what we call some kind of price fixing, which the CCBN and the Bankers Committee sit down to review and decide, okay, the bankers will go to the CBN and say, this is what it will cost, I mean, this is what we will need to provide these services. Then CBN will sit down and look at it and say, oh no, I think this is too expensive, okay, you should charge this. Now, where is the issue of the consumer choice being taken into consideration?
So are you saying the consumer should be part of the monetary policy committee of the CBN, because they meet every month? You want to be part of that
when you are
committee,
discussing things that concern
The customer.
Shouldn't there be a voice of the customer in there to at least alert you to areas where you may have overlooked, because you are players?
But there's some who will tell you, Sola, that the average Nigerian really does not want to pay these bills, whether you're talking about NEPA or water and the rest of them, that we have this mentality that everything really should be free. Is that what we're talking about here? Or are we really saying that these figures, the numbers, say, for example, 200 Naira charges for the use of deposit and transfer forms, are these illegal charges really?
They are real. They are real and they are illegal. And they do not make any economic sense. And the banks get away with it because they have a covering, you understand, of the CBN. I have had to take a bank on the issue of you charging me 105 Naira for card maintenance, and I'm asking you, you gave me this card 2 years ago. I've never seen you ask, what have you done to maintain this card with me? Because every time I use the card, you get paid for that transaction. So what are you maintaining again? And the only thing the bank said to me is, CBN approved it for us to charge. So my issue here is that we need more competition in the real sense in the banking industry. Consumers are being made to pay.
In terms of services provided, or
yes,
what?
and in terms of pricing.
Okay.
Okay, there's no competition in pricing in Nigeria. CBN sets a cap and say you can't go below this.
Perhaps the lending rate most of the time.
Practically everything.
Yeah.
CBN says you can't go below. No, okay, when it comes to lending rates and quanko, that's a CBN prerogative, because I understand that the monies that the banks are lending is actually CBN putting money in the system for them to lend. So the CBN can say, okay, I'm giving you the money at this rate, which would now determine how much you can send that. But I'm talking of basic day-to-day services. I don't think CBN needs to get involved in those kind of things. Let the banks look at what, if you want to charge 200 naira for the form, give me room, give the other bank room to be able to determine for himself, I can do that thing without using a form, so I can do it for free. Okay. That way a consumer can say, oh, this bank A charges 200 naira,
blanket
bank
pricing,
B doesn't charge, I go in that direction.
Okay.
That's competition.
There was a time when the COT, sort of provided this kind of competitive edge.
It didn't. There was already a COT. It's just that, people can go negotiate it. Do you understand? What we're saying is CBN is interfering in the bank customer transactions too much.
Would you want them to interfere more in the area of prosecution for banks that are found wanting and culpable? Because what we just heard a couple of minutes ago is that the monies were refunded to the owner. Do you want the sanctions to go beyond just refunding money to the owners?
For me, I'm a holistic consumer rights person. Redress is the last resort. There should be more protective and preventive structures in place. Do you understand? Half the time, when these banks overcharge their customers, their excuse is CBN approved this range for us. Even when that range does not make any sense, or there's not been any particular service that I can say I have enjoyed that can be valued at what you are placing there. They are always trying to be protectionist towards the service provider. Yes, government has the responsibility for balancing the sectors, but when you are doing it, don't be too much in favor of the service provider because you see, the service provider has access directly to government. Millions of consumers don't have a place where they are going to government to say, this is how we feel.
Indeed.
About this. So when like Power, when they sit down with the minister and they tell him all the tales of woe of how it is difficult for them to do business, and so that's the reason why we need a tariff increase. He's heard their side. He doesn't want them to collapse, so he would say, okay, we'll go and explain to the consumers. Has he called us to say what are your issues? And then when we even raise our voices and say we are not even getting the power, we're paying for what we're not doing, they'll say, don't worry, because they are more concerned.
What do you think is responsible for this kind of situation? Do you think we ourselves as Nigerians, we don't pay attention to some of these things? Or even when we do, you're sitting in your house and money is deducted from your phone and the phone bips and you just look at it and say, oh, okay,
it's just 100 naira.
They've deducted again, just 100 naira. But when you sum it all up, it's a lot of money. 6 billion in 2015 alone. That's what the CBN has asked the banks
that's
to
like
refund.
A tip of the iceberg, actually, because how many consumers get to CBN to complain to the point? It's only the big consumers, the companies, and then the high net worth people who really that can push hard, because what they take from them looks massive. But all of us, little 1 naira here, 10 naira here, 10 naira from everybody, when you add it up over the sheer number of banks, I think they say we have about 140 million or so, or 130 million of us, or 50 million, I don't know the number.
Shared among the 20-something banks.
Bank accounts. So when you look at it all across the spread, that's a whole lot of money. But because it is a trickle here, a trickle there, a trickle there, when you, as the consumer somebody takes 100 naira from your account, want to go and complain, it will cost you more than 100 naira. That process of complaint. So why should I bother?
So the question the average Nigerian would want to ask is, Sola Saloako, for example, what is the benefit of all of this?
The benefit of what?
Of this whole struggle, where you engage the banks, of course, it could be any other, you know, sector. It could be PHCN tomorrow. What exactly are we trying to achieve here?
What we're trying to achieve is a more strategic consciousness of the rights of the consumer. We are trying to get service providers to understand that the only reason they're in business is because of the customer. And when you please your customer, you get more business. Okay, not just take advantage of the customer because you can, which is the problem. They usually would only set up structures that protect themselves, nothing to protect the consumer. And this is a transaction, it is a legal transaction, it is a contract between the service provider and the customer. So when we are in a transaction, there are rights for both sides, and those rights must be protected.
Okay, let's look at the stamp duty. This is, so to some people, seem new, and of course, yesterday I kept getting text messages, and I saw myself being charged 50 naira for some. I was like, what did I buy, really? But some lawyers have argued that when it comes to stamp duty, that it is on the concurrent list. It is not in the place of the Minister of Finance to send circular to the bank to say, okay, start charging stamp duty. So if there's going to be anything, review or implementation on charge duty, it should come from the National Assembly.
There's a whole lot of issues about the legality of those charges. I have read the stamp duty law. The way it is being applied is not the way it is written in law. I have also read up on the case that gave them the right to charge the stamp duty, which CBN referred to in a circular when it commanded the banks to start deducting the 100 naira. Stamp duty is a legal transactional levy, in that you and I have a transaction and there is a receipt or a paper that stipulates the fact that this transaction is going to take place. The stamp duty is to legalize that transaction.
After the bank takes its own charge for doing that same function.
It's not even a bank thing.
Where does
Do you
it go?
understand? It's not a bank thing. So what we don't understand here is that, you see, government is trying to poke into your business and say, once you get any payment, somebody pays you for whatever, irrespective of what that money is for, we want to assume that it is a transaction between you and the person who pays you the money, and therefore you should be legally notarized. And then the charge of the notary issue is a stamp of 50 naira. So we don't even get the stamp of 50 naira, yet the government deducts the 50 naira from electronic transactions. So that's not in the law. It's not in the law. So the CBN is stretching the provisions of the law. And I know that we're working on being able to go challenge this in court, because the law as it is written does not stipulate.
It's not what they're
doing
now.
No,
let's look at the situation where banks are charging customers for, you know, at a parallel market rate to pay school fees and medical.
That is a direct violation of even the CBN directive. So it's alarming for us that CBN has been quiet for so long on this issue. It's very alarming, because CBN states categorically where banks should source their FX from, and it is from interbank, not from parallel markets. So when the bank starts to charge you at parallel market rates, the bank is telling us that it goes out into the streets to buy the dollars that it uses to settle our bills. And CBN has been quiet about that for almost 6 months, 8 months now, since last year. It started actually towards the end of last year. And that's pretty alarming. That's something that is making all of this CBN drama a bit disturbing, because if CBN is latently or silently endorsing banks becoming black market
customers,
not just customers now, they are even the operators, because they are operating in black market. It means that they source their monies from all kinds of places, but when they want to sell to you, they sell at black market rate. So that means they are making this massive spread. Do you understand? Only short of the real black market by maybe 10 naira, 5 naira. Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, that's alarming.
This government has accused banks of being unpatriotic. I mean, let's look at the issue of the mass sack that's going on right now. That government is saying, look, we will withdraw your license if you insist on sacking you know, workers. What's your take on that one?
I already actually put out a notice on this one. I feel that the two parties involved have no moral right to do what they're doing. First, the banks don't have any moral right to mass sack in this economy that is tanking. One, they are one of the reasons why the economy is tanking. They are a major
Contributor.
culprit of the mess that we found ourselves in. We can highlight all their sins from here to whatever. Two, they are, even as we speak, illegally still charging customers for services that are not rendered, just taking people's money anyhow. So that means they are still stealing from us. Now, we are in this economic issue, a situation where all of us are making sacrifices. But the banks don't want to make any sacrifices. They still want to be able to declare their profits. In all the sectors in Nigeria that's operating right now, the banks and telcos, who are the ones sacking a lot of people, are probably the two sectors that are still making money.
Well, are you sure the bankers are, do you think they are really making money? Because just last month on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, some of them have declared warning notice. Like 10 banks, really.
Hello. Have they taken salary cuts? Have they drawn back on some of their excessive expenses and whatever it costs them to run businesses? We know how they do. Do you understand? Let's say maybe about 10% of bank staff earn about 60 or 70% of their salary wages. The top 10. Have those top 10 take salary cuts? We have not heard of any of that. But when when it looks as if our profit is going to be threatened, you hit the lower rung and push them into the job market that is already bleeding. Do you understand? That is very unpatriotic. They are supposed to be patriotic corporate citizens of this country.
Don't also forget that most of their loans are tied up with the energy sector because of the dip in oil price. They are not getting their money back.
They know what they did to get. Somebody told me yesterday that one particular bank gave 99 billion naira loan to someone to buy a rig or something, and then they couldn't pay, and now they went and brought them. You know, there's those rigs in Marina that they are actually the bank foreclosing on a loan, and so they packed it there to be looking at it instead of it being in the high seas and earning money. And I said 99 billion. If that bank had taken 10% of 99 billion and spread it on small businesses in loans and all that, the repayment rate is much better than one default that crashes a bank. Okay, so they've made all kinds of horrible decisions. I don't think it is right for them at this point to be offloading staff. They should let us see that they are already also tightening their belts first. And then when you can't go any further, then we can understand that sacking mass people at this period is not the first option to adjusting your balance sheet.
Okay, so what's the way forward?
Government has no moral right to insist that they shouldn't sack people because
House Premier Alliances.
Yes, you don't. Why would what right do you have? They are private. They are limited liabilities. Do you
so
understand?
It's like being between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think it is their moral. The government doesn't have any moral right. Is government giving them any tax breaks? Is government helping out with ABCD? If they are,
even paying its own loan.
Yes, if they are, then you can say, okay, I'm the one sustaining. But if you are not doing that, how can you be telling somebody how to run his business? If you want me to keep employing your people, put benefits on the table for me that will make me keep employing them. So yes, I think the banks are being unpatriotic, but I don't think it is in the place of government to tell them. It is in the place of
to sack people or not to sack.
Yes.
Finally, you had the No Banking Day.
Yes, we did.
This year. Looking back, how do you think that played out? And are you going to have another one? Just in case
it's dependent on the
banks don't
we are not
come
excited,
on the same page with you.
We're not excited about declaring boycotts or whatever. It's just when you want to pressure to make them take decisions that would benefit consumers. When we finished that No Banking Day, a whole lot of consumers sent me text messages showing the bank saying, we are refunding your 5,000 naira as over charges on transactions. They got a lot of refund.
But customers in Abuja seem unperturbed by that because we are not sure that there was a large turnout in Abuja. Do you think they are comfortable there?
It's not that. It wasn't intended to shut down the banks completely. It was intended to just put a dent in their transaction and if they go look at their records, they will know that yes, there was a dent in their transaction because they responded. They didn't obviously respond, but they started to repay customers on stuff and all that. We are looking at what the CBN is approving again now and looking at it and seeing whether this is in favor of consumers as much as it should be. If it is not, then we're going back into the trenches. Because it's calling out boycotts or consumer actions is only dependent on whether there's room for dialogue. If you don't want to listen to what we have to say, then we have to show you that we also can put some pressure on your system.
Now, with this 6,000 complaints so far, is it a true reflection of...
How can it be? 6,000. There are millions and millions of bank customers, okay? Okay, maybe all of them don't complain. Maybe some people don't mind the 100 naira. But at least 80% of Nigerians are complaining, okay? So how can 6,000 people in 100, maybe 50 million customers or 100 million customers, how can 6,000 be a true reflection of what is really going in there? That's why I said CBN needs to get proactive with consumer protection, not reactive.
Okay, and that's where we'll leave it. Sola Saloako, passionate advocate of consumers. Thanks for coming on to TVC Breakfast.
Okay.